Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I just want to give you guys a quick first impressions of the Canik Mete MC9 Prime. We've already done some work to this and we'll show you that in just a second. And I don't want to really talk about things from kind of a review perspective because we don't have near enough rounds down range. All the Caniks I've had have been extremely reliable, extremely easy to upgrade, extremely easy to work on. So that being said, I wasn't too worried about this one being reliable out of the box. So, yeah, first impressions, took it home, shot a few shots through it. It felt exactly what I expected. It may be even slightly better in the sense that this gun is extremely more thin and lightweight than a lot of the other guns that I have and shoot regularly. So I kind of actually expected it to shoot a little bit actually harsher than it did. It actually shot slightly softer. Now, is it the softest shooting gun that you can get? Absolutely not out of the box. It definitely is not when you compare it to full-size heavier guns. You know, there's no way that you can outrun science and physics and all that stuff. So, you know, what the science proves about physics and things like that, you know, a lighter gun, a thinner gun is always going to feel a little bit more snappy than a heavier, thicker, you know, more dimensional area to put your hand on. You know, is going to make a gun feel softer in the hand. But because of the 3 ports in the front, this was slightly better than I expected, and the ports worked even better than I expected. On most of these ports that they put on these new guns, it's really about following the fad and what people are wanting, and they try to make it look like what they want, when in reality most of these devices do not work that well. I'm not saying they don't work, I'm just saying they don't work always as well as they try to make and advertise and market the gun to work. So that being said, let's just go into my first impressions. I haven't got to weigh this thing, so let's weigh it real quick with a factory mag. Let's do that real quick. I'm doing this for the first time on camera, so let's just see what this thing weighs. 1.9 ounces. So 1 pound 10 ounces, so roughly 26 ounces. Oh, that's with the light. Let's take that light off. Sorry guys, I wasn't expecting to do this, so here we go. I thought that was a little bit heavy. So you drop 2.5 ounces there. So basically, yeah, I mean, it's about the weight of a Glock 19. I would say pretty close. It's just lighter than I expected, because considering it has all the features and the magwell on it and the aluminum trigger, it does have night sights as well, so that's pretty cool. Let's turn this off real quick. Yeah, it does have night sights, which is really neat. I will say that this cost a little more than I expected, you know, then, you know, you kind of want to pay for a Canik. But that being said, I probably did pay a little bit more because it is new, and you're always going to pay a little bit more. You can't find those really good deals. But I also bought it local, and I kind of wanted one, so I went ahead and, you know, just got what I found. It wasn't bad. The price wasn't bad, but it wasn't what I expected, or what I really kind of expect out of Canik most of the time. So that being said, I just kind of letting you know that it's still a good price for all the features you get. You get a magwell, aluminum trigger. You know, their triggers are all performance triggers pretty much, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, even this might be aluminum. The mag release button might be metal as well. I'm not sure about that, but I think it may be. I haven't had time to research it. I've already had this gun apart, and I've already kind of done a pre-travel reduction on the trigger, because the way these things come from the factory, the trigger is awesome as far as reset, pull, the feel of it, but they just allow these factory triggers to have too much pre-travel. I don't know why. It's way beyond the point where it, you know, it's deemed safe. You know, they go way further forward than they have to, and I know it's all about making it safe for, you know, people that aren't used to shooting guns and stuff like that. They do it for those people, and they don't do it for shooters like us. You know, they market these guns, and a lot of times the people that do gravitate toward Caniks are, you know, those people that are on a budget that want a nice first gun, and I think that kind of makes sense for them to do. But I did a pre-travel reduction, probably took away about 2 or 3 millimeters of pre-travel from the trigger, so now you only get a little bit of pre-travel before the break. It's still more than some guns, but it's a lot less than it was, and it's better than most guns out there, striker fire guns now for sure. But yeah, nice pull and break on this thing. The trigger has not been worked on as far as dropping the weight in any way. We probably will do that next week some, but we have not done that at all. So it is factory condition. It pulls at 3 pounds and 14 ounces, I think. But I will say that these triggers are kind of cheating when you pull them on the scale, and I think that's one reason why they get such a good name, is because, yeah, they're super smooth and they have a super crisp break. I think that's really the most important thing. So they are worth saying that this is one of the best, if not the best, in my opinion, striker fire trigger out there out of the box. But you know, they get sometimes lighter pulls out of them because they got this real long leverage point that you can pull from. So this is 3 pounds 14 ounces, but it kind of gravitates toward the bottom when you pull it. So really it feels more like a 4 pound trigger, 4.5 if you just talked about pure weight. But the smoothness and the break on these things are fantastic. You don't get none of them false walls like you get with a lot of striker fire guns. It's very clean, you know, it's predictable. The reset's awesome. So yeah, but as far as the weight goes, sometimes people will say, you know, they want to advertise the weight so fast on these, but you got a really good leverage point, and that's one reason why you get so low poundage pulls on these out of the box. But I think we'll get this thing down to about 3 pounds soon. Okay. So out of the box, it had 3 ports, as you guys know, but this top port, I'm a big believer that the vertical ports are way more effective and important than side ports or V ports per amount of square millimeter, square inch of opening. You know, the vertical ports work way more effectively, and I don't want to bleed off more gas. That's why I think V8 ports, they're awesome and they work, and they really do work. But I just think that the V8 ports, especially if you start pulling them more toward the side of the gun, you are not deleting as much muzzle flip per each port as you would with vertical ports. I think vertical ports do exactly what you want without bleeding off too much gas, so why do much other than that? This barrel has been, the rifling has been taken out of the end of it, so it's not really a port, and it's not really a comp because there's no wall for the gases to get trapped in. So I don't really consider this a port or a comp, but it's more of a port than it is a comp. But I don't really know what you would call these, you know, and be really factual about it, because in my opinion, a port is something that's drilled straight into the rifling, and that way the bullet passes the port and gases are trapped behind the bullet, and they're under compression, you know, they're under pressure, and they escape that port, and that's what makes the ports work so well, is that gas is trapped. The same way with a comp works really well because there's usually a wall and a small hole for the bullet to come through, and those gases get trapped behind that wall and then they blow out the top. This does really neither one of those, because the rifling stops here, and then the gases are allowed to travel around the projectile. You know, maybe only like 10-15% of the gases, but that's enough to bleed off a lot of gas. So they're not as effective, but they do work. So out of the box, I would say if you was to shoot this against a regular MC9 of this barrel length, you'd probably get about a 15% muzzle reduction, rise reduction. That's just a guess. I don't have the time or the weapons to actually study all that, but yeah, that's what I would say. But yeah, what we've done with this is we opened up that front port, the top port, because that's the most effective port, and I wanted it to the gases to find it faster than the other 2 ports, because I think it's the most effective. And then we also did 1 port back here, and I really wanted to do 2 ports, but after looking at it and studying it, let me show you this real quick. So after looking at this and studying it, you're just so close to the chamber. You know, you've already got a short rifling length on this gun. This port should not affect it at all because it's well placed, but there's plenty of room for pressures to raise up and the bullet to gain velocity before it hits this port, and there's not enough ports there for it to really bleed off. You know, that velocity needs to actually run the gun and to actually allow the gun to function properly without having to reduce a lot of the recoil spring and lose way too much velocity to use hollow points and stuff like that. So this should perform very well, and I did notice that it was about just this one little port made and opening this one made the gun at least twice as effective. I mean, when you're feeling it return back to zero, it's twice as effective as what the stock ports were. So just one port and opening that front port made the gun feel twice as flat, which is pretty impressive from my understanding, my opinion. But also the neat thing is I did this myself. I did this using a regular drill bit and slowly going at it in a Dremel, and most of this cut was done with the Dremel, believe it or not, because I didn't want to burr up or deform this hole. I wanted it to be a perfect hole, and so I used my Dremel grinder. After I started kind of making a hole, I used my grinder to slowly grind down and left the barrel kind of cool. I didn't want to overheat it, so I would go down, work a little bit. It took me about a good 30 minutes to cut this hole, and it's not even a thick barrel, but I just wanted, it being me and I'm not having the right equipment to do that. You can do things with a lot of different equipment if you do it slowly and patiently, so that's what we did. And like I said, it's twice as effective as it was. So awesome trigger. This mag wheel's perfect for carry. It barely adds width to the gun, but it gives it that kind of professional, more competition type feel, which I like personally. We do have a Gideon XL Judge XL coming for this gun. I did want the bigger glass because I want this to be a small, lightweight gun that shoots like a bigger gun. That's my kind of thing. That's what I'm into right now. When it comes to smaller guns, I want them to function and shoot very similar to large size guns. Let me throw this, for instance, this Hellcat. I am thinking about finding someone to give this, not give this to, of course, but to finding a way to trade this for something else, because it just don't fit my needs anymore. It's not what I like. Some people like this kind of thing. Now this has got I was playing with this comp. This isn't the original comp. It comes with a comp, and it's threaded so you can put suppressors. It's a nice little suppressor host, and it's a nice little gun, but it just doesn't really do for me what I like, and I just don't see and feel a reason to have it anymore. But this gun is definitely a lot more up my alley. So I hope you like my first impressions. I hope you will like and subscribe. Please leave a comment below. It supports the channel. God bless. Have a great day. Let me know if there's any questions or comments. But yeah, so far it's just first impressions, not a review. I really do like it. It's been 100% reliable with the few rounds I've run through it so far. It's been kind of raining. Haven't had a chance to shoot it much. Also wanted to update. Well, I may do this later, but I'll throw a quick update about the Daniel because some people have been watching the channel. I do think, real quick, we're going to run some rounds through this. We've run like 80 rounds through it, had one stoppage, and then I run about 50 rounds, had one stoppage, and I had a thought, and I read the manual, and it confirmed my thought, and that is maybe I was over-oiling the gun in this area because the gun was real tight in this area. As far as the extractor and stuff, so I was heavily oiling those areas, and I think as unburnt powder and carbon got into the chamber, and there was too much oil that was getting and leaking into the chamber and around the firing pin and the extractors, it was building up carbon and turning into a mushy, nasty, and I think that could be a big reason for my malfunctions. I just wanted to catch you guys up on that, but we'll talk about that in another video. Just wanted to kind of throw this in there because I know people are probably curious about the Daniel. Like I said in my video on the Daniel, I don't think the Daniel's a bad gun. I think it'll work, and I just got to figure it out. But we're going to run some rounds through it and see if it becomes 100% reliable. I have a good feeling it's going to be a lot more reliable going forward if I keep that chamber and firing pin extractor area really dry. Oil it and then dry it off. So I can keep it oiled with like a film of oil, but not, thick oil, or not really, drench it in oil like I do my 1911s sometimes. I just got to keep it really, really light in those areas, and I think it'll be reliable. But yeah, the gun is awesome. I love it. Keep kind of in touch with the channel, and you'll find out more about it. God bless. Have a great day. Just first impressions.